Hey everybody, welcome back. So I just wanted to take a moment and kind of get you up to speed on what it is I have planned for this year. I signed up for something that's new to me. It's pretty common everywhere else in the world, but on this coast, the West Coast, it is very new. So I signed up for a drag and drive event. I've always wanted to do one. Most of the ones on the East Coast are just a little too far to drive, and especially if I've never done one before, it's just kind of scary. Being a first timer and being that far away, if something happens, I just wasn't ready for it. So this is the first go at it. So it's called the Redwood Rally. You can get more info at redwoodrallye.com if you're curious. It is already sold out, unfortunately, but you can do something called a vagabond, which allows you to kind of travel to all the tracks. And that's kind of something I'm going to be taking part in. My wife is planning on driving our truck with a camper on it. And it's basically, she's going to drive from track to track and she's going to follow me around. She can't work on the car, she can't drive the car, but she can kind of bring the hotel with her, which will be nice of her because, the car's kind of loud and it's uncomfortable. But so I forgot to mention that I'll be in the 3-pedal class. It's quarter mile, run what you brung. Obviously, I'll be in the domestic class, 2 time slips per track. Your cumulative ET places you with the field. Should be a blast. So basically, it's a 4-day event. It's around 700 miles. You go from Redding to Samoa to Coos Bay to Medford, Oregon, and then back to Redding, California. I have a list here, by the way. I have a lot of things to cover. So that's going to be pretty awesome. I love that drive. Driving through the Redwoods is going to be amazing. I can't wait to get the footage and just, if you've never been on the West Coast, the 101, is such a nice drive. They had some fires recently, but I think a lot of that's probably going to be behind them. Hopefully everything's recovered with all the water that California's had recently. So moving on to the things we have to change on the car. So there's a pretty extensive list of things that I'm going to change. As you probably saw last time, I took the car out to the track. It ran an 11.49, which compared to the NA setup before I had the blower, that's a whole second faster, which is awesome. Unfortunately, I just don't think that's really what the car's capable of right now. So the clutch was slipping, and I had a few other, setup changes because I had just put the 4-link in it. So I think what I'd like to do instead of adding more power, make the car more reliable, make it safer to drive on a long distance, and safer to drive at speed. So having said that, right now there's going to be no power changes. There's just going to be drivetrain changes. So probably the first biggest thing is a new transmission. So right now I run a regular T56 out of an F body. It came out of the 2002 Camaro that I bought all of my stuff from. I actually bought the car and then parted it out because it was a salvage title. But I got the transmission and the engine from it. Engine's long gone, still have the transmission. So they're rated at 450 foot-pounds. I'm gonna be making just a little bit more than that, but I'm gonna be launching it pretty hard. This car really likes to launch. When I was NA, I think I was launching at like $6,000, and it actually bent my transmission cross member. So I know I'm really trying real hard just to run the numbers that I am. So anyways, I'm going to a Magnum transmission. Magnum T56, they're rated at 700 foot-pounds. It's the F body, so I can just do a direct swap. I don't have to change much. And with that, I'm gonna have to make a new trans cross member because the one that I had, like I said, I bent last time. We have a new clutch. So as you may have seen in the last video, the clutch was slipping. It was an oil down issue. I think I used thread sealant on the flywheel bolts, but I don't think it was strong enough, and I think the oil just pushed right through it. So I'm gonna have to use a different one this time. But anyways, I went to a Spec Stage 3 clutch. It is a sprung puck disc style, so it's going to be kind of aggressive engagement, and then I kind of shot myself in the foot and I got an aluminum flywheel as well. So there's a lot to learn there, but I think it's going to be what it needs to hook up. I'm hoping to install no lift shift. So with the Terminator, it is possible if you have a clutch engagement switch that you can wire it so that basically anytime that you're wide open, if you stab the clutch, it'll cut the ignition for a second so you can shift easier. Not only is it better on the transmission, it's just actually a lot easier to drive. I had that on my Cobra, insert video. And it was amazing, it really was. It was kind of a life changer. With the transmission, running the times that I think I'm gonna run, which if I didn't mention, I really feel like the car is capable of a high 10, low 11, and that's without any changes, just the way it sits. This pretty light car is 3,200 pounds. With a blower and a 5.3, you're probably looking at like 5.5 on E85, maybe 6 if you're lucky. I did reach out to quite a few cam manufacturers, Cam Motion being one of them, one of the best. And I said, hey, like this is my setup. It's a 5.3, it's a stock bottom end. I'm running an LSA blower. None of it's ported yet, but I want to port it in the future just to, you know, make sure that I'm getting everything possible out of the engine. And I said, this is the cam I'm currently running. What do you guys think? Is there something bigger, better, different that I should be running? And they said, what you have is perfect. So no cam changes. So internally the engine, you know, now that I have it running correctly, no changes. On the outside, well, before I get that far, finish off the transmission, basically running the faster times, I'm gonna need a better bell housing. You have to have an SFI approved bell housing. I wanted to get the quick time. The price of it was just kind of insane to me. It was almost $1,000 for a bell housing. So I did some internet searching, and I found on Jegs that a company called Quartermaster, which has been around for a long time. They're usually like dirt track guys usually run that stuff. But they just released a T56 to LS bell housing. I'll throw the part number in here. And I purchased one. It seems like one of the first ones they've made because I think they released it in January and it's currently the end of February. I got it here. There's no instructions. I mean, I'm probably just going to go by the QuickTime instructions. And here's the bell housing. So if you look on Jegs' website for this bell housing, it's supposed to be blue. I'm not going to make a big stink about it. I mean, it doesn't really need to be any specific color, but the blue online was pretty cool looking, so I'm a little bummed. And then the other weird thing is, so there's ARP bolts, which is amazing. Some of these are 12 point, some of them are 6 point. And like I said, there's no instructions, so there's really no indication of what goes where and why. It almost just seems like they kind of ran out of the 12 points and threw some 6s in there. So that's weird. Yeah, so it's going to be an SFI bell housing. And, you know, with all the other drag stuff, and you can see it right there, I did have to get an SFI crank damper as well. So I went with the ATI, the super damper. You know, there's a lot of different options out there. ATI is probably one of the best ones. It's rebuildable, and they had the setup that I need. So I do have AC in this car because, you know, it's a street car. I had the secondary for all the accessories. It would be better to run like an LSA setup. Everything was separated. It would be 3 belts, one for AC, one for accessories like a water pump alternator, and then one for the supercharger. I just don't have space in front of the engine for all that. So what I did was I upgraded to an 8 rib. So the alternator, the power steering, everything is going to be on 8 rib now. Luckily, when I bought the supercharger kit, the actual upper pulley was 8 rib. When I installed the Dodge tensioner, it was an 8 rib. So everything's already ready for it. I just had to buy a couple more things. So that should help with slip, so that we can get the full potential out of the blower in the current route that it sits. With the new transmission, we're going to have a 31 spline output. I did buy the Sonnax, I guess how you pronounce it, Sonnax maybe. The output shaft, it's a chromoly piece, super nice. Definitely going to be more than I'm going to need. And it's a 1350 U-joint, and I think the U-joints on my drive shaft are 1330s because they're out of a F-body. So that'll be the strongest point, and everything behind that is going to be the weaker point. Having said that, I wanted to put aftermarket axles in it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a couple more short axles from the Explorer and just bring those with me. So, you know, with all of this on the drag and drive event, it is common to have a trailer. I thought about trying to put everything in the back of the car, but on these Novas, being as how they're not full frame cars, when you do a 4-link kit, it removes all the support in the trunk. So if you start putting a bunch of weight in there, you can have issues with it kind of buckling in the back fenders, which is definitely not a problem I want to have. So I'm going to put a hitch in the car. I went down to Harbor Freight and bought their like 4x4 trailer. It's like the smallest DOT trailer they have. And I'm going to insert a couple pictures here, but I have some ideas on how to pack it out. I had to get one that small because it has to fit in my car trailer, which is a 20-foot car trailer. I went out and measured everything with the Nova in the car trailer and the trailer that I'll tow behind it. It would all fit in there if I do it just right. That's the plan that I have on building out the trailer. So I'll have space for axles, I'll have space for a spare, I'll have space for, you know, a few other spares. I'll have a huge list of things that I'm probably going to bring with me just in case, because I really don't want to be stuck on the side of the road, and some of the stuff's kind of particular. You wouldn't be able to just go down to the parts store and find it. As far as the axle goes, like I said, I wanted to put aftermarket axles in it, but I'm just going to bring some stock ones. I am going to replace the wheel bearings, potentially front and rear, but definitely in the rear because I never have since I got it shortened. It was probably recommended at the time, and I didn't have the money because I was building a whole car. So that's going to be redone. I'm probably going to get bigger wheels for my drag setup. Right now I have 10-inch wheels in the back, but the drag setup that I have is from when I didn't have it mini tubbed. And those are, I think, 8-inch wheels. What I plan on running is a 28 by 10.5 on the car, which, you know, if I'm launching it as hard as I plan to be launching, that may be necessary. in the engine bay, as you can see, everything's looking a little torn apart. I think I boiled down the engine issues to a wiring harness issue. You can call it a harness, but it's not the Holly harness. I think it's how I have everything set up. So what I have decided was I'm gonna pull all the wiring apart. I have it run kind of weird in the engine bay, and I'm gonna try and shorten it up and then put some nicer connectors on it because it all just goes to the starter right now. So right now, all the wiring comes in here and then it went to the starter and then everything tied to the starter. I'm gonna move everything to this side where the alternator is and then bring it into it already goes into the passenger cabin for the charging system, but it's like 2 small wires and I'm gonna make them much bigger. And hopefully that will make it more serviceable, but also make it more reliable. I've only had one issue previously, and it was right before I started having engine issues. I'm guessing it got too close to the headers and probably burned a wire. I'm gonna put a drain on my intercooler tank so I can throw ice in there. I need to make a vent for it. New connectors. I got fiberglass reinforced heat shielding. What else we got? So the front end is held on with some bolts because 67 Nova. And I finally went out and bought some new ones. So hopefully these grade 8s will do the job. Oh, specific hose clamps. When I put the fuel pumps in the tank, they were not gonna be the most reliable. So I'm gonna plan for the fuel pumps to go bad. So I brought a bag of new hose clamps that hopefully will fix that issue. And then we got all the electrical connectors and pass-throughs, and I got some new V-bands. Another thing I wanted to do was change from the 2.5-inch exhaust to a 3-inch exhaust. But in the testing that I did with the dumps, if I raced with the exhaust cutouts open, it would be like running a 3-inch exhaust. So I'm not super worried about it. So there's the engine as I just ran it recently. I need to do a little more testing. I have a few things I want to throw on here just to try and see if it's injectors or if it's coils or maybe spark plug wires. Just kind of feel the whole thing out before I put it in the car and just hope it gets fixed when I do the wiring. There's a new dampener. I did double drill it, so obviously you can't see it, but the crank is pinned twice just for safety. So hopefully I don't have any issues with it spinning while racing. And let's see what else. I think that's probably most of it. These brakes are not even bed in yet. They're literally brand new. When I put them on, I planned to take the car out and bed them in, but I never got the chance to because it didn't run right. I'm gonna have a new PCV tank. So basically, I had like 3/8 lines on there before, and I think what happened was it was kind of over pressurizing the crankcase. So I bought a larger kit that uses like -10, so they're way bigger than it was. Hopefully that'll keep the engine alive. There's the tank. There's the blower. I bought a 102 throttle body that they say will help a little bit as long as it fits here. If it doesn't, I'll clearance this a little bit. But if I take it this season and I find that, I'm getting consistent times and I'm not quite going as fast as I think I want to, I'll send this out for $500 and get this ported. I say it's good for like 20, 30 horse. And then it'll take advantage of the 102 throttle body. The other major thing that I'm going to do is a roll cage. So this car is a street car. I really don't want to put a roll cage in it, but at the same time, it is a 67. It is pretty old, and it would be nice to have it a little bit safer and a little more rigid. Honestly, that would be pretty sweet too. So the plan is, I have a bar in here just sitting because I was kind of feeling everything out. I think right where the seats sit, as you can see, the pillar is here. I'm gonna have to bring the rear hoop, the main hoop, I should say, to about there. And then it'll be right behind that pillar. And then the actual harness bar will kind of have a bend in it that'll go behind the seats. I mean, the rear passenger is not gonna have as much room and it'll have to be padded. And technically they should probably wear a helmet. But at the same time, I need to have a roll cage to run the numbers that I wanna run and to be competitive in the class and, for safety reasons. So that's the plan. It's gonna have 2 door bars. You only need 1 technically by NHRA regs, but it would just make sense to put 2 in. So we're gonna go from here to probably around there somewhere, as you normally do. Other than that, it's just getting this thing ready for driving. I was trying to figure out how to get a hitch in this thing. They do sell some kits, but they're mostly like bumper pull hitches, and I really don't want to rely on that. So I got this guy, which is it's a little overkill for what I'm doing. It's actually a class 5 hitch, but it was $85 on Amazon used because somebody bought it and couldn't use it. So that's cheaper than I could literally buy the material for. So it's got a receiver and everything built into it. So I'm gonna throw that in there. And then it'll be actually, so instead of, here, hold on, let me change it back. Okay, so instead of the hitch being like out the license plate or underneath the bumper, it's actually gonna be pointed down. So you'll have a hidden receiver that goes straight up into the car and then comes out, kind of a 90 degree. And I just did it that way because if I'm not using the hitch, I don't wanna see it and I don't need other people to see it. So that was kind of nice. Other than that, I'm just gonna have to try and get all this stuff done in a few months, 6 months, right? Which is doable. I just need to get the car tested. I need to get all this stuff done. I need to get the car on the road. I need to get it to the track. I need to drive it with the trailer fully loaded. I need to figure out what tools, I need to figure out all the parts that I'm gonna bring. I need to, just sit in traffic with a full load and just see if this thing overheats, see if the AC works, see if the trailer has problems. I mean, I haven't even built the trailer yet. I just went and bought it. It's still in boxes. I don't even have a place to put it at this point. We have so much stuff floating around here. So full rush, full tilt, trying to get this car to where I think it should be and get it ready for the race. But I'm gonna make more videos. This is just part one, and hopefully you guys will come along with me. Thanks for watching. See you next time.